Hello everyone, can you hear me?
You have a lot of background noise. When did you want to launch the webinar?
What did you say, Alexandra?
Anna, on a énormément de bruit de fond là. Quand est-ce que tu veux ouvrir le webinar?
Alors, le webinar, là, il est ouvert. En fait, le stream est ouvert.
Non, oui, mais le webinar n'est pas ouvert, puis il n'y a pas encore de public. Donc là, si le stream est ouvert, c'est dommage parce que là, il y a beaucoup de bruit de fond.
Good morning, everyone, and happy to be with you, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. Welcome to all of you to the final YEM Regional Forum implemented by the UNESCO, funded by the European Union. YEM, as you know, stands for Youth Employment in the Mediterranean, and this is what we will be talking about this morning. Mesdames, Messieurs, Excellences, bienvenue tout d'abord.
Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies,
Recording in progress.
To the International Forum of Youth for the Mediterranean, organized by the UNESCO for the financing of the European Union. We will be speaking about this topic this morning to see all the aspect challenges. Welcome to you all, ladies and gentlemen, in Arabic to the YEM virtual meeting financed by the European Union and implemented by UNESCO. We will be speaking with many of our guests this morning.
Is implemented in 8 countries, and this final regional forum has its own objectives. Actually, it aims to show to all the parties involved in that program the implementation of the project in the region through a presentation of achievement first, of course, and listing of challenges that are still to be tackled by those countries and how collaboration, how cooperation could help tackle them. First of all, I'm happy today to be with Mr. Burhan Shakroun. He's the director of the Division of the Policies and Lifelong Learning System at the UNESCO. And thank you very much for being with us. Thank you to all our permanent guests who will be also joining us via Zoom today. Our first guest, who will listen to her testimony, is Ms. Costanza Farina, director of the UNESCO Regional Bureau for Education in the Arab States, UNESCO representative to Lebanon and Syria. Let's listen to her.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much, colleagues, distinguished experts and participants, dear Burhan, dear Mrs. Trautmann, and really all the experts and participants who are with us today. Thank you for joining us, and a very warm welcome from Beirut. Let me start by saying that since its launch in 2018, the EU-funded project that the colleague just mentioned, Youth Employment in the Mediterranean, YEM in abbreviation, has been working on improving youth employability and on enhancing their employment in the 8 beneficiary countries across the region. After 3 years this summer, the project will come to an end. So we are all aware that for a long time, countries in the southern Mediterranean region have been struggling with numerous challenges in the political, social, and economic areas, including internal and protracted conflicts, forced displacement, and major demographic changes. This has unfortunately led to sluggish economic growth, low levels of skilled job creations, and high youth unemployment rates. Additionally, the current COVID-19 pandemic was and still is drastically affecting economic development, triggering considerable job crisis, exacerbating socioeconomic inequalities, and disrupting conventional education and training models in a way which is completely unprecedented. Meanwhile, the labor market is witnessing tremendous changes and requested skills evolve rapidly. So technical vocational training, education and training, TVET, which can be a lever for the economy as it should prepare the skilled labor force suitable for the labor market, can and should play a more dynamic role in tackling unemployment and in ensuring social equality and inclusion. Today, with the changes in the market brought by the digital transformation, it is essential that TVET will adopt more agile strategies and teaching methods to strengthen its relevance. The access to quality education relevant skills, particularly through TVET, has received a renewed policy attention in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, given the ability of TVET to foster the creation of decent jobs, to promote entrepreneurship, and to connect education to the world of work. With the generous support from the European Union and in partnership with them, the YEM project was designed to respond to these challenges and trends and focused on improving the skills anticipation systems, on promoting quality TVET in the region, and on assisting TVET providers and youth organizations in anticipating and preparing for the changes in the labor market. Over the project duration, several robust results were achieved, and my colleagues will elaborate on those shortly in the next session. But from my side, I hope the project impact will prove to be sustainable with the many resources that were developed and made available, with the several opportunity for debating and exchanging views and good practices within the region, and with the many young people and TV stakeholders acquiring new knowledge. And perhaps what may prove to be really invaluable might be the cooperation, the synergy, the partnerships that were established and forged among all the parties involved during the past 3 years, and the spirit of collegiality that was created in their efforts. So hopefully this will have a multiplier effect on all those who will be serving and are serving any TVET initiative in the region. So from my side, thank you again for joining us, and I wish fruitful discussion, and I look forward to the findings. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farina. I'm inviting you all now to watch this pre-recorded message of Ms. Henrike Trotman, Acting Director in European Neighbourhood South at the European Union.
Dear participants, dear colleagues and guests, it is a pleasure for me to be part of the concluding regional forum of the Youth for Employment in the Mediterranean project, YEM. I would like first to extend my gratitude to UNESCO as the implementers of the YEM during the whole time spent of this project. I would also like to thank partner countries' representatives who have contributed to the implementation of the YEM project, without whose continued commitment, including during the difficult COVID times, this wouldn't have possible. The European Union launched this initiative to respond to one of the key priorities of the region, empowering young people to become fully equipped in order to be active citizens and to contribute to their country's growth and sustainable development. Today, youth remains at the core of priorities of national policy agendas and one of the key pillars of the new agenda for the Mediterranean, which renews the partnership between the EU and its southern neighbors. With 54 million people in the age between 15 and 29, projected to be at 64 million by 2030, young people represent a huge opportunity for the region. They can bring new skills, new competences, and eventually contribute to productivity, boosting emerging sectors, and create new jobs. The main focus of the Youth Employment in the Mediterranean project has been to understand how to collect and use effectively information on skills needs, turning them into relevant policy actions and programs while establishing appropriate governance arrangements to ensure good coordination across the key stakeholders in the beneficiary countries. The initiative is ambitious in trying to address youth employment both from the angle of labor market and its fast-changing demands, and from the perspective of skills supply for the purpose of building more flexible and innovative education and training programs which embed key competences such as digitalization and entrepreneurship. The importance of networking and peer learning has also taken center stage, and efforts have been deployed to continue these exchanges as much as possible despite the pandemic and the imposed physical distance. We hope that the opportunity offered by the YEM Knowledge Platform will be seized, further developed, and continued also after the project ends. Fostering opportunities for exchange and sharing, as well as peer learning, has always been valuable ingredients of regional and multi-country projects. To relaunch and strengthen the strategic partnership between the EU and its southern neighborhood country partners, the European Commission and the High Representative adopted in February 2021 a joint communication proposing an ambitious and innovative new agenda for the Mediterranean. The new agenda is based on the conviction that by working together in a spirit of partnership, common challenges can be turned into opportunities in the mutual interest of the EU and its southern partners. The new agenda identifies human development and inclusive economies as key drivers for the post-pandemic recovery and an enabler for building more prosperous and equitable societies. Beyond economic indicators, the objective is to improve people's quality of life, providing them with opportunities. Young people remain at the heart of the concerns of partners in the South, and the EU is committed to support young generations to overcome challenges linked to job opportunities, which are limited, difficult transitions to the labor market, and inactivity. The commitment to untap the potential of youth in the region is a key priority in the joint communication, including broadening skills offer opportunities, formal and informal, upskilling and reskilling throughout life. Moreover, The importance of building more inclusive labor markets, including for young people, women, and migrants, is also an objective of the UFN Ministerial Declaration on Employment and Labor signed in Cascais in April 2019. A regional approach will allow countries to share common issues and learn from each other's methods and tools to tackle the national issues. At the level of implementation, activities under YEM have sometimes suffered from delays and in some cases slowdowns and suspensions. It's therefore advisable that focus is now put on accomplishing project activities in order to assure the effectiveness and make the best out of this last and final months of the intervention after a difficult COVID period. Keeping the YEM knowledge platform available, updated, and accessible after the project ends will be beneficial to the sustainability of results and visibility of outcomes. So we are very keen to hear today from the concrete results of the project, which could support successful practice and pilots to emerge further and be further developed and deployed to address pre-existing and new challenges. The conclusions of the discussion today will contribute to the collective reflection on what are the right skills for specific sectors and how education and training can contribute to deliver those skills, but also how initial and continued training can support the transition from school to work and from job to job. So I all wish you a very, very interesting meeting and celebrations for the conclusions of this project initiative. All lessons learned will be very, very important in view of designing new actions and new cooperations in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Enrique Trotman. It's very interesting actually to see that project, the YEM project, and the importance of collaboration and cooperation in the region to tackle all the needs of a labor market that is changing today. We have and we face common challenges, and I think it's very interesting to see how we can also find common solutions to them. So now I'm happy to pass the floor to Mr. Burhan Shakrur, and just reminding that you are the Director of the Division of Policies and Lifelong Learning Systems at the UNESCO. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Sabah al-khair, bonjour. Mesdames et messieurs, chers
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Costanza, dear colleagues, 3 months ago, during the Regional Forum of YEM at the beginning of April, we had set the date of this meeting. This meeting is essential to study the results of the project. It is also vital to discuss the sustainability of the different benefits of this project for the employment of youth. At the same time, the discussion can only be useful if we cover it within the present framework. Today, there are major inequalities that are increasing in the region. This is confirmed by the recent studies and surveys of UNESCO's and other organizations of the UN, amongst others. It shows that the countries of the region are hit by 5 socio-economic educational fractures increased by COVID. First of all, poverty. The number of poor people in the region, those that earn less than the level of poverty of $5 a day, will pass from 175 million to 192 million by next year. There's a lack of employment. The level of unemployment of youth is the highest in the world and covers 25% of active population. The quality of employment with a major informal sector has an incidence of the young, notably the young girls and young women, whose unemployment levels is the double of that of young men, 42%. The third fracture is inequality of access to apprenticeship. Between March 2021 and January, I correct myself, says the speaker, March 2020 and January 2021, that the level of closures of schools was the highest in the world. And according to UNESCO, an average of 22 weeks of schooling were lost in the world, whilst it was 28 for this region. According to a study with the ILO, the World Bank, the OECD, Teaching and vocational training faced major challenges during the crisis. The training in the workplace was disturbed, and the teachings had to be done through digital means. Digital means are not very useful when it comes to vocational and practical experience. The fourth fracture is the digital fracture, or the digital gap. Despite the efforts of the countries of the region to develop digital learning policy, those policies and programs were not inclusive. Our statistic institutes estimates that 35 million of students and learners in the area were not able to access those online programs. The last one is budgetary, because half the country increased their education budget in the face of the pandemic, whilst the needs increased. Few countries of the region have included in the economic growth plan when they exist education and the development of competence. At international level, we consider that less than 3% of the recovery budgets are targeting education. We have to act. The YEM project comes with very down-to-earth solutions.
As you respond to the pandemic crisis and shape technical and vocational education and training of the future, YEM has offered concrete and effective approaches in 3 priority areas. The first is collecting and sharing more and better data on skills demand and supply. This is what the first component on anticipating and assessing the skills demand in the labor market offers. The country support and the recent training conducted jointly with ITC-ILO, and which benefited to more than 100 experts from the region, offer assets and resources for engaging in deeper reflections and forward-looking regarding the impact of the crisis, as well as phenomena like Industry 4.0 and the green transitions. As agreed with my colleague Snehal and his team, the resources developed and shared with you will be available for the years to come. The second priority is investing more and investing better in digital skills. This is what we have achieved through the partnership with PICS using the Digicom framework. We were able to organize at scale teacher training and equipping youth with the digital skills for work. And we are discussing with PICS, represented by our colleague Benjamin Marteau, director of PICS, to sustain our engagement in the region. Again, the platform and resources will remain available and accessible for a long period. The third priority is strengthening the regional and international cooperation. YEM project's community of practices on labor market forecasting, digital skills, and work-based learning have shown just how essential this cooperation is. The YEM platform hosted by UNESCO UNEVOC International Center in Bonn is up to date and will continue offering resources and knowledge sharing and resources regarding the different areas of work of YEM, including successful reforms, engaged promising practices, and peer learning events. And we are finalizing the country skills panorama that will be available soon on the platform. It is also a space where the country's youth can interact and share perspective regarding skills and employment. This has been a collective endeavor, and I would like to thank our colleagues at European Training Foundation, at the ITC-ILO, and at PICS, and all their teams engaged in these activities. Today, we will hear from partners and regional stakeholders concrete proposals for sustaining YEM achievements. الأخوات والإخوة الزميلات والزملاء استجابت.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, UNESCO has provided a swift response to requests from member states in the region in order to cope with this crisis. So we have provided a lot of tools for distance learning and education, in particular in the area of vocational training, help with the reopening schools and teacher training. We have also launched a major initiative to maintain learning and education during the pandemic, involving over 80 private sector partners, academia, and a large range of stakeholders. We have also set up a partnership with the Global Skills Academy, and an International Alliance for Education. And we have helped over 1 million young people to acquire skills, particularly digital skills, so that will make them employable going forward. We'll be talking about YEM today, but there's also the International Day of Young People's Skills that we will be celebrating. It has been organized for several years now by the UN, and it's about reinforcing international cooperation and dialogue in the area of young people's training. This International Day this year, therefore, is about strengthening young people's skills post-pandemic. In particular, we will be focusing on the fact there will be UN Decade for TVET going from 2021 to 2029. Thank you all very much.
Now we're going to Beirut, actually, from where joining us Mr. Salim Shadi. أستاذ سليم، مرحبا بك. أنت أخصائي في برنامج التعليم والتدريب التقني والمهني، وسوف تحدثنا في مداخلتك عن مكونات مبادرة.
So good morning, sir. We are now going over to Beirut, and we will hear from you about the challenges that countries in the region have had to face during the pandemic. Good morning, dear colleagues. Greetings to this last YEM forum. Let me start by thanking Ms. Costanza, the Beirut Regional Officer, Ms. Strootman from the European Commission, and Mr. Chakroun from UNESCO. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to everyone present in this forum today. As you know, the YEM project has been going on now for the last 3.5 years. And now we will try to take stock of requirements in terms of young people's employment in the region, how we can improve training, in particular as far as digital skills are concerned, and how we can strengthen cooperation between countries, within countries, too, when it comes to training and educating young people. Setting up a regional platform for young people's employability training, despite the challenges the region has faced, the last of which is the pandemic, of course. Despite all those problems, we've been able to step up our training activities. So we have launched a wide range of activities under this project. And during this forum today, we'll be talking about all the dimensions of this project. The young people are, of course, the prime beneficiaries of this project. We will be showing you a little video where young people talk about their needs as part of the International Day of Young People's Skills. And then Mr. Osama Nanim will report on the key outcomes of the project. Then there'll be another video about beneficiary countries. Representatives from those countries will speak. We will look at the challenges involving regional and international experts so that we can identify trends on the labor market of the countries concerned. We will look at the themes covered by the project. We will also look at the sets of skills that the project has developed, skill sets such as digital skills, of course. And then we will move on to hear from other stakeholders to see how this project and its outcomes can be made more sustainable. And when we reach the conclusion, Mr. Borhan Chakroun will report on how we can extend the benefits of this project. These last 3.5 years have gone very quickly, and now we need to take stock of the outcomes and see how these outcomes can be reinforced and made more sustainable. Thank you very much, everyone present here, everyone who's been involved in contributing to the success of the project. And I very much hope that this forum will make it easier for young people to be employed in the region.
We will now move forward to the next sequence, which is the YEM achievements. We've been talking about the youth in the region, and it's time, I think, to listen to their voice. The film that we'll be watching now is entitled Voice of Youth in the Mediterranean region on this World Youth Skills Day. Let's watch.
The skills that I want to learn for the future are soft skills, as for me are the key to a bright and successful future. In terms of technical skills, I've never thought to change or think about a skills other than electronic, as I believe electronic, it is the future. Although I want to further improve my technical skills, and as a technology enthusiast, always be on the cutting edge of technology. In this post-pandemic era, it will be very important that all skilled young people have a sense of innovation and critical thinking. Involve what we have learned from this crisis and use it to our favor. Think critically and improve our equipment and material to avoid any other crisis that might arise in the future. I want decision makers to increase more awareness on entrepreneurship and offer more opportunities in this regard, and simply involve youth more on decision making. As young people, we see things from different perspectives, and we are the most concerned by those decisions.
We will connect now again with Beirut, from which is joining us Mr. Oussama Ghnaim. He's a YEM project manager. And you will tell us, Mr. Ghnaim, about the 4 types of YEM achievements, as we're talking about the achievement today on this sequence, and how they answer the needs of youth in terms of, for example, research, methodology, or capacity building. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Aziza. Distinguished participant, good morning. As you know, YEM project come to its end after 3.5 years. During this time, the YEM project beneficiary countries witnessed numerous activities and to support youth employment and employability. In this presentation, I will try to shed the light on the results of the YEM project, which I categorize them into 4 main types. As you can see, these are the 4 main types that I will explain briefly also about these results and how what we have done in the YEM project during the 3 years. In terms of research, studies, manuals, and books, we have done, for example, Life and Work Skills Toolbox. It's a toolbox for life and work skills done for Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine in Arabic and in English. We have reviewed WBL programs for youth. Also, it is a study regrouping studies in 8 countries. 3 among these studies were done by our partner ETF. And then also we have a study about reviewing labor market information system, which is very important for Lebanon. And also we have an important study, or comparative study for digital entrepreneurial skills in the YEM countries. and it's about all the different countries. When it goes to methodological tools and the processes, what these are tools that could be done or could be used by policymakers in order to go further in improving the quality of TVET. In the field of anticipating skills, we have 3 methodological guides for anticipation skills, well elaborated for this issue, and that in order to anticipate skills in the labor market. For example, the skills gap models, it's a quantitative approach in Palestine, and the 2 others are qualitative approach, one for monosectoral and another one is multi-sectoral. And another important methodological tool, it was the work-based learning policy guidelines, ready to be used and helpful, very easy for policymaker in order to implement this the work-based learning into TVET systems. Capacity buildings. As you know, capacity building is the key to implement these studies and tools. Therefore, many trainings have been conducted on various subjects, such as prospective scenario skills in Lebanon, Jordan, Tunisia, and Morocco, entrepreneurial skills in Palestine. Yesterday, we have finished it. We have done this, the end. It was the end of the sessions. Life and Work Skills Toolbox, where we have trained 26 teachers in Lebanon and the curriculum developer. A skills anticipation and matching YEM project. It was with ITC ILO, 108 participants. Mr. Shakroun has already mentioned that also. And forecasting skills in Palestine, and the use of PICS digital platform is for digital. As you know, here we have 108 participant teachers and curriculum developer who were trained, and we have 2,400 students per country will be using this platform for digital skills. Forum, webinars, and workshops. Continuous collaboration and connection with our partners and stakeholders was assured by many activities. Among them, we can say we had at least 4 regional workshops. It was before COVID, as you know, face-to-face. 3 webinars on water and on water sector in Lebanon and water skills, and tourism in Palestine and in Jordan. We have 2 regional forums. One of them is the one that we are here now. And we had 1 platform. It's 1 knowledge platform where practitioners from all the YEM country can come and benefit from its activities and its resources made there. As you can see, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's a countdown. We have the resources, we have the willingness, we have the vision, we have the people. We are here, UNESCO are here, many partners are here, donors are here. So 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Go, yes, go ahead. Youth are waiting for us. Thank you. And
thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Osama Ghnem. Thank you very much for this presentation and for the go that you just gave right now. Our second film is a presentation more in details about the YEM project. This project that aims actually, as we just understood, and we will be also discussing the details further, is to build more inclusive labor market, including women, including youth in the region, and help and also countries to shape the right answers to tackle the issues that are common actually in the region through collaboration and cooperation. Let's watch the film and we will discuss further after.
مشروع تشغيل الشباب في منطقة البحر الأبيض المتوسط والذي يتم بالشراكة ما بين فلسطين وعدة بلدان يساهم في الترويج إلى مسارات التعليم المهني والتقني الأخرى مثل التدريب في بيئة العمل، والذي يساعد في تقليل الفجوة ما بين برامج التدريب التي تقدمها الكليات التقنية ومؤسسات سوق العمل. كما أنه تم من خلال هذا المشروع تطوير نموذج للتنبؤ بالمهارات في فلسطين، والذي يعد نموذجا خاصا متميزا في المنطقة. المشروع ساهم في تعزيز ثقافة التعليم الريادي بين الشباب من أجل البدء بمشاريع خاصة في ظل ازدياد معدلات البطالة في فلسطين. كما أن هذا المشروع ساهم في بناء القدرات لعدد من المحاضرين والعاملين في مجال التعليم المهني والتقني، مما يساهم في نقل هذه المعارف والمهارات إلى الطلبة ويساهم في التنمية الاجتماعية والاقتصادية في فلسطين. كما أن المشروع يتضمن محورا هاما يتعلق في المهارات الرقمية للطلبة وخريجي الكليات التقنية من حيث تطوير الخطط الدراسية بحيث تشمل هذه المهارات الرقمية والتي يحتاجها سوق العمل، وتساهم وتعزز فرص التشغيل لدى الشباب في مؤسسات سوق العمل.
The YEM project beneficiary and contributes to the youth employment and entrepreneurship. And since more than 60% of Jordan population are under the age of 30 years, and the numbers of unemployment among them is really high, especially now with COVID-19 pandemic, where the tourism sector for us as our sector was hit the hardest and more people are losing their jobs. We have to strengthen the national system for skills need anticipation and assessment and help more youth, women as well refugees find jobs. Now in the Middle East or the Mediterranean area, especially in the Middle East, everybody is working on matchmaking the skills with the needs of the employers and the industries. And the tools that are used by the YEM and are really important in reflecting that on our real life.
As a member of the youth committee of the Ibrahim Abdel Al Foundation, we have a lot of youth members that are always trying to ask what is the next step for them, what studies should they go, what sector should they move towards, what is the future related to work. This is where the YEM project comes in terms of anticipating skills and what is needed in the future. And in our work in the YEM project, the sector that we chose to start with was the water sector, for it being one of the integral roles, especially related to the SDGs. It's the center of the SDGs. And we thought that this is where the future is. So we addressed the water sector and we were looking at what are the future skills that may arise in this sector in order to be able to better lead or better target youth, especially those who are willing to go into the sector but are not sure which way to go. So regional collaboration is required, especially if we can transfer skills and knowledge between each other and previous experiences and what has worked, what has not worked, and share this knowledge together.
I think the importance of the YEM project lies in its objectives. And if we look at one of the objectives, which is the reinforcing of capacities of countries in the South Mediterranean and the strengthening of ties between the Mediterranean countries to benefit from each other's experiences is very important. The relationship between entrepreneurship and TVET is really great, and I think it will also help improve the image of TVET within society. I think equipping students with life skills is more important than with the technical skills. And I think TVET in Libya has started, although on a small scale, of introducing life skills like 5 years ago. More still needs to be done regarding this. And this is how we see entrepreneurship is really important. It's not just technical skills or maths that students need. It's how they deal with different matters in life that's more important to them. And obviously after the COVID-19 pandemic, those skills are more important, are more vital to such people, to equip them, to prepare them for life after school or after university.
I have been involved in the anticipation skills platform component. We concentrated on that in Palestine, and we worked together on this main component of the project here. We look to this project as a very important project where it will provide us with different tools and it will be, I look to this project as well as a platform for sharing experiences with other countries and maybe learning from each another. This kind of tools is very important in this aspect, in addition to other tools, of course, like the labor market information system, research and studies units, and all the relation and interaction tools between the supply and the demand side. I think that it's very important when we would like to plan, we need not only to take care on the level of the country, on the national level, but also to keep our eyes and minds open to the regional level and maybe to the international level, where in the globalization era, mainly related to building the skills and competences of people and developing the human resources, it's a very broader borders where we need to think and to make cooperation and partnerships with other countries on the regional level as well on the global level. This is very important to ensure successful and to have the main standards between these countries in order to give the opportunity to youth to have movement between one country and another.
Ce projet a vraiment contribué à le dynamisme du partenariat avec les différents partenaires nationaux producteurs de la formation et les représentants des secteurs dans le fait qu'on les a impliqués dans la méthode du scénario-là et donc et ce dynamisme-là de confiance et d'échange d'informations et de contribution et de l'importance de cet outil-là et du projet YEM, c'est-à-dire la promotion aussi bien de l'emploi que de l'enseignement et de la formation professionnelle.
Nous avons initié une réflexion de fond qui était déjà inscrite dans la stratégie nationale d'information professionnelle. Mais grâce effectivement à la contribution de YEM, nous avons quand même été plus, et notamment grâce à une étude qui a été réalisée par ITF sur l'état des lieux de la formation au milieu de travail avec l'appui de l'UNESCO et qui a délivré un certain nombre de recommandations, nous avons pu effectivement engager une réforme de fond avec les partenaires publics, qui a conduit aujourd'hui à une réforme de ces deux dispositifs de formation au milieu de travail qui sont l'apprentissage et l'alternance. Cette collaboration est absolument nécessaire à plusieurs titres. D'abord, c'est l'occasion, dans le cadre de ces échanges, de se connaître nous-mêmes par rapport aux autres et d'apprendre des autres et de partager et de donner et de recevoir. C'est-à-dire que ce sont le format donc, tel qu'il a été conçu d'un atelier accompagné par des expertises et d'échanges d'expériences a permis effectivement de donner et de prendre donc, dans un esprit de partage qui enrichit forcément leur réflexion au niveau de chaque pays. Et donc il faudra un cadre, un portage politique qui permettrait effectivement de poursuivre ce type d'initiative très positive.
will now move forward to our first panel session, experts and stakeholders, the key trends in labor market and skills. We've been talking a lot now, and this morning, the few hours where we've been here, we're talking about skills anticipation. And joining me from Tunisia, Monsieur Mohamed Yahyaoui, National Observatory in the Employment and Qualifications in Tunisia. Monsieur Yahyaoui, vous allez justement nous parler à partir
Mr. Yahyaoui, you're going to speak about the Tunisian model. You are going to speak about anticipation of competence with the method of scenarios. You have the floor, sir. Thank you to all. Good morning to everyone. If you'll allow me, I have sent my presentation, and I hope you can show it. The YEM project is a follow-up of the former project that started in 2016, which was entitled Net Med Youth. We have developed a model for competence anticipation, and we waited for this project to continue in order to help developing five-year plans. So Tunisia, as I have said, has prepared this model of competence. And in the framework of the YEM project, we used the scenario method, which was implemented by professionals. This is a new idea. That is to say, make the professionals participate in the different methods of the scenario in order to be as close as possible from the reality. So that was in 2018. We started with 5 sectors of activities, including textile, clothing, ITC, transport, small stores, mechanics, and metallurgy. COVID slowed us down, slowed down all the work we were undertaking in the YEM project. And we decided to conclude the case study in the sector of textile and clothing. This started in 2021. We have organized training sessions on the competence anticipation techniques. This was organized by professionals and representatives of the different trades. We have noted preliminary results. I'll ask you to move on to the next slide, which presents the objectives. So the objective of the scenario method is the following. The main objective is to set up scenarios for the future of this activity in order to find the necessary competences on a horizon of 5 to 10 years. The method allows us to make recommendations to promote the more favorable scenarios. We have to identify the systems, we have to set up the assumptions, and we have to study scenarios, impacts, and recommendations. Now, about results. Could we have the next slide, please? Improving the anticipation of the needs in order to take into account the reality of professionals, active participation of professionals in this exercise, teaching professionals this anticipation exercise to transfer their knowledge, and developing a guide of competence. I'll speak about future access for development and cooperation. First, this will happen with the support of UNESCO. We had organized a first exercise, and we would like, in the framework of a new cooperation, organize an exercise on a 5-year horizon, taking into account the recommendations of the different partners during the first exercise. looking at sectorial questions and introducing prospective scenarios. So we trained the different professionals on this scenario method. We have also undertaken a prospective study of the textile and clothing activities. This study is not over because of COVID, the propagation of the disease, the slowdown of the activity. So we hope to complete this study. And we would also like to use this study in other promising sectors. And we have to reinforce our technical team in terms of modelization. Thank you for the interest you've expressed. Thank you, Mr. Yahya. We will stay in the field of anticipation of competence with a qualitative approach and the explanations given. And I give the floor to Mrs. Véronique Lamblin, who's an international expert. You have the floor. Good morning to you all. Thank you very much. I wanted to speak about prospective employment and competence using two methods that were developed within the YEM project. The first one, which Mr. Yahyaoui has described, as it was implemented in Tunisia, with the purpose of being a multi-sectorial operation based on quality. And we will look at employment projections. This is what we call the sectorial scenario, which aimed at bringing together experts of different sectors in the field of education in order to assess together the evolution of the activities and improve employment in each individual sector. The method was developed in 2018 in Tunisia with ONEC and Mr. Yahyaoui. This is a qualitative and quantitative model which aimed at explaining the quantitative projections through the use of experts. A more classical method was developed in the past 2 years of the YEM project, a more traditional approach because it covers one activity. It aims at studying this activity throughout time to see the needs of the sector tomorrow. So the objective was to identify the competences of this given activity sector, see what would the competences of tomorrow look like. And on the basis of the training sessions we've organized, we could not do a study because we were in the midst of COVID, but we looked at training to teach the different stakeholders to learn the procedures. And we tried to bring together experts from this specific sector and experts in the field of education in order to identify the competences we would need tomorrow. And through training, we noted that the need aimed at identifying the way what one could obtain competences that have been identified as a need of the future today. Experts said we need specific competences, but the scenarios were used to assess how to acquire those competences, what are the different trainings that should be mixed, and how work should be done on the ground. This training was used and taught in 4 countries, in Lebanon, in the field of water, in Morocco, on craftsmanship, in Jordan on tourism, and in Tunisia in the sector of textile and clothing. So it was a training through which we try to implement the method through and through. And I do hope that the different stakeholders will be able to implement this on the ground. We've developed guides. One was drafted in English, another one in French, in order to allow them to find the information that was passed on to them during the training. The guides are very useful. The process is easy to explain. For every sector, we have to define the value chain, then identify the elements that have an incidence on the value chain, what has an incidence on employment. For instance, once we have identified the main factors, we develop assumptions, and through those assumptions, we try and imagine how the activity will develop and then develop skills that need to be taught. I do hope that this method will be deployed a bit better than it was through distance training, because we were bound by this distance and a reduced number of trainees. But I do hope the stakeholders that participated to the training session will be able to deploy this method with more flexibility in their own countries. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Madam Lamblin.
Be joined by Mr. Habib Hain, Palestine Economic and Policy Research Institute. He's joining from Palestine. Mr. Hain, you're going to tell us more about the case of Palestine and specifically about the first Palestinian skills forecasting model. The floor is yours.
أكيد مرحبا بالجميع. بالبداية يعني أود أن أشكر
To start with, I would like to thank
على
UNESCO and the European Union
المصادر والخبرات
that has provided resources and expertise in this sector
صياغة الخطط المبنية على الحقائق.
to help us develop our different plans. The project started in 2013. UNESCO contracted different international experts, including Palestine, and
وفي حين قام فريق من معهد أبحاث السياسات
a team from the Mass Institute was invited to participate, providing experts data in order to develop models. A few months after starting our work with the team, we worked with the Ministry of Employment, the Ministry of Education, we worked with the Ministry of Research, the Statistics Office, and other ministries. We have developed the first model, which is the first quantitative model for Palestine. It was used at the time to try and forecast the needs until 2020 in order to develop the job opportunities in Palestine. And despite the fact that the model was the starting stone of the effort, our first model had several deficiencies because it did not describe the Palestinian labor market sufficiently, because the Palestinian market suffers from different structural problems. We have coordinated with the different ministries, with institutions such as UNESCO and the Ramallah office, and the Ramallah office of UNESCO contracted MAS directly to review the program and take into account the reality of the labor market in Palestine. And on the basis of the comments of the experts group, a new model was developed. So the second version of the model was much better than the first one because it linked directly with the labor market with greater accuracy. But you know that quantitative models are restricted because of a restricted number of data. It doesn't have enough details, and it restricts our capacity to forecast the necessary skills and competences for the future, which means that the present level of detail is not sufficient to build the necessary policies. And it is necessary here to develop data in order to have a full model. For instance, we need to provide the international model. We need also appropriate information that can be used on the specific specificities of each sector. And
The
second model was developed between 2016 and 2020. This model has used older data that we had before Corona, but as everyone knows, Corona happened and the reality is different today from what it was in the past, and the future scenarios have changed. In the same framework, because of the importance of the sustainability of the model in 2020, UNESCO has contracted MAS again to present a workshop in order to develop capacities for about 20 participants. People representing the relevant ministries in order to make the best of the effort that had been done to develop the model for the coming years. Now, when it comes to the model which was used, it is a traditional professional model which compares the forces of the ground. It looks at job of openings, demand for jobs, economic forecasts, which are then linked to jobs. And this is the first part of the request for future jobs. In the second part, we find the jobs for people who are not employed. Now, we also have a section on labor. We see the people who are unemployed, who are looking for a new job, and we also indicate the graduates who just had their diplomas and who are arriving on the labor market. Now, when it comes to future requests in order to preserve the sustainability of jobs, we have to look at the different stakeholders through the social dialogue platform. And UNESCO has made great efforts in order to improve cooperation with us, but there is a need to continue concentrating on that. We must also create specific sectorial skills councils in order to enrich the quantitative approach that was adopted. There is also a need to continue developing the tools and skills of forecasting and to transform all that into policies. We also need financing. You need financing when you gather data, and we need more detailed data that can be used in order to do better forecasting. There's also a need to work more on developing capacities and merging the teaching institutions in the process. There's also an attempt to take into account the reality on the ground in Palestine, look at the migration of labor, because this is a major challenge, and today we do not have data on labor migration in the country. In addition to the necessity to reinforce cooperation between the countries that are working on this sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll move now to Mr. Gary Gan, who is joining us via Zoom from Singapore. You are a co-founder of JobCrate. And Mr. Gan, you will be talking today about the use of big data and also AI in understanding the skills, demand and supply. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me for this forum. So today, as mentioned, I want to very briefly cover some of the areas around how AI and big data can be used to understand skills demand and skills supply. So before I begin, it's good to have an understanding of why is it important to understand skills demand and skill supply. I mean, all of us on this forum, we understand that the world of work is changing really fast. Every single day, there are new jobs and new skills coming out. Industries are changing, are being disrupted, not just by pandemic situations like COVID, or it could be the industry being changing and transforming as well, right? So I think that's why it's really important for countries to understand how this skills demand is changing. What sort of skills are the industries looking for? What sort of changes is the industry going to? And thus, how does that affect the skills demand? And conversely, using that knowledge, how can countries come up with a strategy to then change their skills supply to meet the skills demand, and realize that this needs to happen very fast. It needs to happen at a much faster speed and pace than before, because the market is moving so fast. You cannot wait 3 years, 4 years, 10 years for a degree program or a diploma program to pick up all these changes in industry. So that's why I think a lot of countries are turning to using AI and big data to have some of these answers to understand skills demand and skills supply. So let me share a little bit about the difference between the different approaches and techniques that I used previously to understand skills demand and skills supply, and how the modern methods are different. So traditional methods could be surveys, where you send surveys to the employers in countries. It could be industry consultation, where you meet different industry professionals. It could be coming up with forecasting models like the previous speaker, and that works very well as well. It could be coming up with even skills frameworks, skills models for the industries, right? And the good thing for this kind of approaches that are traditional is that it can reach pretty much anywhere you want to target. So if you want to target certain industries, you want to target certain locations in a country, you can send the relevant survey to the relevant industry representatives, for example. So it can be very targeted, it can be very focused in terms of their research. But of course, it can be something that takes a long time. It's very, very slow. So traditionally, we've worked with organizations like UNESCO, World Bank, ADB. We've seen how certain researchers like this are done, and we contributed to such research programs as well. And it can take 12 months or more to get any data. So that of course makes the reaction in terms of getting data, and reaction in terms of being able to adjust your skills, demand and supply mechanisms to be a bit slower. And it can cost quite a lot of money as well to do that research. And finally, there may be some research bias as well, because it's based on a survey. You only have limited, kind of responses that you can give, and it may limit some of the research possibilities. So I think with new methods, how does this big data and AI work to understand skills demand and skills supply? So the primary mechanism that companies like ourselves and other companies use is to use a big data approach to crawl labor market information. And what does crawling mean? We are able to use mechanisms to scan online publicly available labor market information, which tends to be job descriptions and job postings from job portals in those countries. It could be resumes, it could be even government data sources that are online, but primarily is using an online mechanism to pull the data. And the reason for that is that it's fast, it's speedy. Your machine can pretty much read any a website within a few seconds and get all the data immediately. So that gives you that sort of speed to be able to collect lots of data. We're talking about millions and millions of data points in a very, very short time. And that's just the first step. The second step is decoding that data, to have the ability to read that text automatically and use a taxonomy model behind it that recognizes certain keywords and skills as certain skill names. So for example, a machine must be able to recognize that this word Python, for example, means a programming language. It doesn't mean an animal, right? So it needs to have that knowledge of doing that. So that gives you that sort of breakdown of the skills demand by looking at the labor market information like job descriptions from job portals. So we have done previous similar projects with UNESCO in different countries, and we've done that with World Bank, etc. And what the mechanism is normally either we crawl the data online from public portals, or we do work with the public job portals themselves. So we negotiate with the job portals to collect their past job description data over the last handful of years. And that gives you that sort of time series data as well. You can see the change over time of what the skills and job postings are across that portal. So we were able to do that research very quickly in a matter of 1 to 2 months to get the data out and present it as a research kind of finding to the countries that we are able to show the report to, the government, as well as to UNESCO, for example. So the pros of it, obviously, is that it's fast. This sort of big data and AI approach to understanding skills demand is really, really fast. It can be inexpensive in the sense that if you have a company that already built the tools, it's really fast and inexpensive to do. It can be quite comprehensive and detailed as well, because you're able to pick up all sorts of keywords, all sorts of skill names, all sorts of job description, job posting names, and really have a good breakdown of all the data in your fingertips. Of course, there are cons as well. It's not great in terms of being, it may not be the most comprehensive, because a lot of people can rightly point out that it's limited to online sources. So in a lot of countries, your job postings are pretty much only for the developed parts of the country, right? For example, the capital cities, or for white collar work, for example. So those sort of informal hiring, you may not be able to collect the relevant skills demand data. So by no means is this big data and AI approach meant to replace traditional methods. It's not meant to replace previous methods. It's meant to augment it. It's meant to give it a different data source and combine with all the different approaches. So the uses of such a skills demand data is that you're able to then inform your training curriculum. You're able to inform your training providers very quickly, almost in real time, what's going on in the market, what sort of changes they may need to make to the curriculum, what sort of new degree programs or diploma programs that need to build up and thus affect skill supply. It can be used for career guidance as well. So we have experience working with schools in Singapore, for example, to use that same data point to help students see that, oh, there's such a job title called data scientist. Oh, there's such a job title called software developer. And what does that exactly are the skills there? And then they can read it, they can research it, and take informed decisions in their career to close these critical gaps in the market.
Sorry to interrupt you. If I can just maybe sum up, because we're beyond time. Go ahead.
Yes. Sorry about that. The last point. So finally, yes, so companies can then use this data as well to transform themselves and pick up the new skills that they're looking for using this data. So in short, that's how AI and big data can be used to understand skills demand and affect skill supply. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Garian. And we will be, actually, we will continue discussing about AI. And from Morocco, joining us, Monsieur Mohamed Slimani. Monsieur Mohamed, vous êtes directeur du Centre de développement des compétences.
Of the Skills Development Center in New Technologies and Communication, the OFPT in Morocco. You have the floor, sir. We can't hear you. You've probably left your mic off. It's probably on mute. Good morning, everyone. Yes, now we can hear you. Go ahead. Let me start by thanking the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank everybody involved in the YEM program that has focused on one of our main concerns in terms of social peace and sustainable development, that's youth employability. It's a great pleasure for us to be on this panel, a very prestigious group of stakeholders, and be involved in this high-level discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, our center of PT is the main provider of training in Morocco. We're in charge of over 360,000 trainees each year across the various trade areas, so as to prepare them for the future, focusing on the trades that are most demanded. And we're also involved in reskilling through continuous training for private and public sectors. For several years now, we've been working with other vocational training centers in African countries to help them organize, and also involved in developing their trainers. Now, we are aware of all the challenges and our responsibilities. So we have been working with a number of partners in the field of digital skills in particular. In the area of digital skills and AI, as of this year, we will be offering training across a wide range of areas. Cybersecurity, for example, digital design, data analysis, and virtual and enhanced reality as well. These will support digital development of businesses in our country, but also help our partners in the Arab-speaking world, Africa, and Europe. So through this cooperation with UNESCO, with YEM and PIX, we have been able to set up a cross-cutting training model for all learners across all the training areas, depending on their level of digitalization. The pilot scheme, the number of our learners have been able to use in training centers in Morocco has been very encouraging. And it's also meant that we can address the various problems that arise once we've been able to a widespread rollout of the digitalization training. Once that's done, all the digital skills for each trade and profession can be covered. So our office has decided to digitalize training media and base ourselves on blended learning platforms as of the autumn of this year. We have already been trialing this during the pandemic, and our training teams have necessary technological resources so that everyone, learners and teachers, can benefit from those advantages. Among the various challenges that we have already identified for our ambitious digital approach, first and foremost, there's a change in mindset, I would say, and a cultural change, both in terms of society, young people, and business leaders. It's important that they be made aware of digitalization and the digital sector in their different areas. There's also inadequate connection infrastructure. That's a problem shared not just in emerging economies, but also in certain European developed countries. So this lack of connection is a major challenge that goes hand in hand with other economic problems, say the high cost of access to infrastructure, but also the lack of devices for most learners. In order to deal with this problem, our office is already, along with a number of partners, are working on various solutions that will provide free access and possibility of using the platform using other devices such as smartphones that are more accessible. That's it from me. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Slimani.
Now to Ms. Sharon Fisher. She's a senior occupational psychologist. She's joining us from Tel Aviv. And Ms. Fisher, you will be talking about quality and actually equality also, and also showing us how inclusiveness can lead to higher productivity. And this is the thing that we're talking about today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be joining you today. Merci et bonjour à tout le monde. So I'm Sharon Fisher. I am with 30 years of experience in developing personnel testing programs and assessment. I am the head of evaluation and measurement in the Israel Skills Center at the JDC Tevet, which works in conjunction with the Ministry of Labor. The JDC is a 100-year-old philanthropic organization. Our goal is to promote the well-being of weak populations and open new opportunities in the employment arena. We work in partnership with Israeli government and serve as a social R&D center in creating policies and program. And so what you see here is one of our central goals is to create a more productive workforce, which is inclusive of all populations. On the one hand, we are trying to extend quality employment for marginalized populations and to create a more inclusive productivity. And our goal is to increase levels of employment among Arabs, ultra-Orthodox, older adults, and marginalized populations, and actually improve their level of employment as well. And so we know that one of the central issues that we have is in promoting 21st century skills, which have been mentioned here, both in terms of literacy, of language, numeracy, and digital literacy, but also and foremost, the softer skills such as teamwork and problem solving and creativity. So what we believe is that working on these goals, we will help to create a more inclusive environment for Israel's many ethnic and religious groups. Okay, so what we can see here is that the Israeli society is complex with many large differences between the groups. The different groups we have are based on ethnicity, religion, geography, and even different types of traditions. This dispersion is a central challenge for Israel in general, and specifically for our TVET training, and to improve foundational skills in order to create a more inclusive and open up new opportunity. So due to COVID, we can definitely see that while we had a relatively high employment rate, different populations were lower. And we also saw that certain of the more marginalized population have lower return rates to the workforce. We can see that there is a dropping of 13% among Arab men, and just among young adults as well, 14%. The older populations are also having a hard time getting back to work. And when we look at Arab women, for example, we have in the 30% employment rate, which is much lower than our targets in general, in our national targets. Okay, so Joint TVET has developed a model for future skills. We are looking at both foundational skills, but also emphasize the importance of softer skills, such as teamwork, lifelong learning, problem solving, and creativity. The core is YEM, which actually addresses the center or the internal abilities such as self-efficacy, proactivity, and motivation. And of course, we're also looking at ICANN, which addresses the digital literacy, language literacy, and numeracy. Our YEM project is actually aimed at implementing digital literacy as an evaluation and development tool. We find a double advantage here in that we are looking at the digital literacy on the PICS platform, which is standardized and covers a comprehensive DigComp model, which is great for looking at the international standards and creating a standard among the different schools and colleges. But also we were thinking of leveraging the fact that the PICS is currently in English as a way of furthering English skills in a digital literacy context. And so what we're looking at is implementing this into 4 different technical colleges at the moment, mostly in the north of Israel, with different types of population, many of them Arab, Druze, Bedouin, and Christian populations. And we're going to be looking at generic skills in order to incorporate this in a specific course and following up the different abilities using the PICS platform. Once we see that this, if this is going to be successful, then we could look at using PICS throughout all the technical colleges, using PICS as a digital literacy certification standard, and then looking into the translation of the PICS platform into Hebrew and Arabic as a nationwide testing standard. We hope this collaboration will bring us insights and promotion of digital and literacy skills to promote all our citizens. And we wish you all a very good day and future of collaboration and furtherment of different populations in Israel and throughout the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Sharon Fisher. It's a good transition that you're offering me as you've been talking about PICS, and exactly this is what we will be doing now, as we will be joined by two representatives of PICS France, the director, Mr. Benjamin Marteau, and also project manager Jean-François Plat. We'll be listening to both. I think that Monsieur Marteau et Monsieur Plat, vous êtes avec nous, me semble-t-il. Oui, je vous vois très bien. Donc, je vais vous passer la parole justement pour nous parler de cet outil PICS, qui est un service public pour évaluer et développer les compétences numériques. À vous la parole et je pense qu'on commence par vous, Monsieur Benjamin Marteau.
I give you the floor, Mr. Benjamin, and please start. Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. Very happy to be with you. It's an honor. Before making a presentation, I would like to thank all of the many people that have participated to the YEM project and that have helped us on the PIC project. Let's start our presentation. PICS, I'd like to remind you, for those of you that did not discover the software, is a public service online, the mission of which is to help every individual throughout their lifetime to develop their digital skills, the transversal capacities, producing documents, securing the digital environment, producing documents, solving technical problems, any digital skill we need more and more of today in most jobs, and more specifically in the Mediterranean area. The PICS service does three things. It assesses, tells you where you stand, it develops your skills, continues to develop them, not alone, with trainers. And this is what Jean-François will be speaking about just after me. And it allows to give a certification of the specific level of knowledge. PICS is open to all, whatever your situation, whatever your levels. School students as of 11, 12 years of age. Students in the tertiary education, any professional, any unemployed person, and beyond, because even people that have retired, they also needed to know how to use the digital equipment around us. So there's PICS, and you find on pics.org, and you have PICS Orga, which is a dedicated platform to trainers and teachers that allows them to participate and follow the progress done by the learners. I now give the floor to Jean-François. Can you hear me, says Jean-François? Yes, we do. Good day to all. Within the YEM project, the schools and learners were able to access the PICS platform to develop their digital capacities, and the trainers of trainers, the people in charge of teaching programs, inspectors were also trained in order to identify better the digital skills expected by employers, and then be able to help the learners acquire them on the PICS platform. Now, in terms of activity and results, where do we stand? YEM has allowed to internationalize the PICS platform by developing both a Francophone and an Anglophone version on pics.org. Those two versions were co-built with the participating countries that have produced tests that come out of their national environment and that are presented on the platform. And it gives a little Mediterranean flavor to those two different versions in French and English. In addition to that, different activities were developed at country level with the different stakeholders to answer the needs of the labor market and offer specific digital competence in specific jobs on the basis of the needs of each job. I'll give you a few examples. In Jordan, for instance, the work was done in the field of tourism, and in Morocco in the field of energy efficiency with new tests to test the skills, the digital skills of workers. Another important aspect of the job was around training. 65 people in charge of programs, inspectors, trainers were trained in 5 countries during 22 sessions. They were taught how to use the PIX platform with the learners and how to do an educational effort to include the digital skills in their teaching programs and be able to analyze and build specific digital profiles. That was on teachers. And with regards to the young people, more than 2,000 young people in 60 training institutes have started using the platform to make headway and develop their digital skills. I take the floor back. We have presented the slides because the users, the stakeholders on the ground always speak better than those who develop the programs. And this is Said Kazi, who's a trainer in the the Applied Technology Center of Roche Noire in Casablanca. And he said the trainees start to assess themselves in the classroom, finish the assessment at home. The trainers analyze the results on PIX Orga, pick all the information again in the class. The trainees are very motivated because it's like a game playing. They do the tests and the results are very useful for the trainers. So we are developing tools that are useful, but also easily user-friendly in order to facilitate the process. And this was very positive during lockdown, and we have a lot of very positive examples. The last part of our presentation will cover the future for the coming school year. That was very important for us, as was the case for UNESCO and the countries. So the idea behind that is not to stop the process now. It's only the beginning of an adventure and a commitment, and the teaching institutions will continue to have access to PIX Orga to use it and develop it more with the learners. And we, PIX, will continue to support them. We have different processes that we're looking at. Some requests were done. People have asked to extend the usage of PIX for other institutes, for other training sectors. We are thinking about that. A major effort was done on certification, which was not yet within the framework of the project. We have
Monsieur Marteau, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Reflections in the countries on how to. Can you hear me, Mr. Martin, says the organizers, because we are already 3 minutes late. And the most important point is that we should commit more sustainably in co-construction. PIX should be a common good shared at international level under the auspices of UNESCO. Thank you very much, says the moderator.
Entrepreneurial skills, and we will be starting with Ms. Lara Alamuddin. She's an international expert. She's joining us from Beirut, and Ms. Alamuddin is here to talk about life and work skills toolbox and the technical and vocational educational training. A lot of other guests were talking about it without explaining a lot, so this is the occasion for us. And you will be also addressing the implementation and design manuals in the 8 countries of the project. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à tous et merci pour votre présence.
Thank you. Good morning to you all. Thank you for being present today.
For being here. My name is Lara Alamedine. I am an international consultant in education, expert in life skills. For more than a decade, I have designed, implemented, and evaluated life skills education programs for the European Union, the UNESCO, UNICEF, and UNDP, with a focus on the MENA and GCC regions, as well as Latin America and Europe. I have designed the Life and Work Skills Toolbox for the UNESCO. In this presentation, I will be introducing the context and presenting the toolbox, the manuals, the trainings, and the results. As part of the UNESCO strategy for TVET, the YEM project was implemented by the UNESCO and funded by the European Union to improve skills anticipation systems, strengthen youth employment, and encourage entrepreneurship in 8 countries of the MENA region. This project has 3 main objectives. First, reinforce the capacities of these countries by anticipating labor market demands and making informed policies and decisions. Second, promote quality TVET pathways, foster youth employment and entrepreneurship, and promote equity and gender equality through life skills. Third and last, promote collaborative partnerships and regional cooperation. In May 2021, the first toolbox was developed for the TVET sector in Lebanon. It includes a set of activities for learners and guides for teachers in 4 main categories of skills. As per UNESCO's request and based on the Lebanese TVET curriculum, I have developed a life and work skills toolbox with 180 hours of courses dispatched in 90 modules with more than 300 activities. This slide gives an overview of the content of each material. In this slide, you have an overview of the 12 manuals that were designed for teachers and 12 others for students. As you can see, we have 3 manuals for each of the following skills. You can see in purple the entrepreneurial skills, in red, life skills, in blue, work laws and regulation skills, and in green, digital skills. The manuals and modules are presented as an a la carte menu that can be used in both formal and non-formal education. They are designed in such a way that the facilitator can use the module independently from one another. You can see in this example that all modules are designed in 5 sections, such as the icebreaking, activities, facilities notes, wrap-up, and assessment. The venue took place between June 17 and 23 through a web training that was held at the UNESCO Beirut offices. The first day consisted in giving a general presentation of the YEM project and the toolbox. The second day gave an overview on the evolution and definition. The second day gave an overview on the evolution and definition of the concept of life skills education in general and the UNESCO vision of life and work skills in the TVET sector through the toolbox. You can see the evolution on this slide. The third and fourth day consisted in training the trainers on how to use the 12 manuals related to each of the 4 typologies of skills. As we can see here, around half the audience belonged to the Lebanese Directorate General of Vocational and Technical Education, while 52% of local NGOs and partners attended the venue. Now here is an interesting part, the results. Questionnaires were sent to the attendees before and after the trainings. The main results show that all participants highlight the importance of skills-oriented education, with a particular preference for life skills, 50%, followed by digital skills, 40%, and entrepreneurial skills for 10%. While before the training, only 36% of the attendees felt they could implement life skills without further help, at the end of the venue, 71% felt that the design of the manual was so user-friendly that they could use it directly. And this is a very good news. Overall, 16% of the audience found the approach very innovative. Around 40% of them felt these manuals were adapted to the TVET needs and filled an important gap and existing gap that is in the TVET sector. Finally, around half the attendees expressed the will to have more presential trainings and long-term research on the ground. Thank you all for attending this venue. Thank you. My specific thanks to the Beirut UNESCO office, and I hope we will be able to collaborate together soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lara Alamuddin. We're going now to move forward to the next theme, which is work-based learning. And just maybe a reminder for all the participants who are participating with us today is that you can ask your questions. Please send your questions to specifying to whom you're asking, you're sending them, and we will be addressing all the questions and asking the guests to answer you either after the theme or at the end of this session. So moving now to the fourth theme, as I said, work-based learning, and we're back to Palestine with Mr. Ziad Jouailis, National Tibet Commission. Mr. Jouailis, your presentation is about the work-based learning in Palestine and how it's linked to the achievement and challenges of the YEM program. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Well, my presentation is going to be taking or considering some of the one or two of the components and one of the two of the results for the YEM project. I will consider firstly to take or to talk on the component one, strengthen the national system of the project. Next, please. Since, thank you. If we consider the first component, and one of its results is to improve the governance of and national dialogue. I consider here actually three important points connected with the project and has been taken in Palestine. I'm pleased to tell and inform actually the UNESCO, the ETF, and all partners and other countries, regional countries, that Palestine has decided to establish what we call the National Tibet Commission in Palestine. This is actually to take care and to be the national umbrella of everything related to the Tibet sector. In other words, it's going to include and take the vocational centers, vocational schools, technical colleges, NGOs, governmental, non-governmental, UNRWA under this commission. And this will actually get around the fragmentation and scattering of these institutions. So this is one of the important issues and decisions that has been taken in Palestine just recently. And it will talk about the regulations, policy measures, strategic framework, and everything. And it actually is, it has a board of directors headed by the Prime Minister and members from 5 line ministries, in addition to the private sector, the Federation of Chambers of Commerce, trade unions, and all other stakeholders. The government or the governance principles are going to be taken care under this new entity, and the partners, as I said, all are from the public and private sector. Next, please. In this regard, if we go to result 2, for example, under component 2 of the YEM project, improve equality and promote attractiveness of the Tibet pathways. I quote here a couple of points which are related to the now our theme or subject, which is the work-based learning. For example, I will quote some points regarding this work-based learning, which is, I won't enter into its definition or its features because everybody know that. But for example, this is a new approach and successfully being implemented in Palestine. I have to say that these some results are from the project funded and implemented by the Enable in Palestine, which is the Belgian technical cooperation, which really conducted a very successful project, which is the work-based learning. Of course, when we talk about the private-public partnership, it's there. If we talk about participation of all stakeholders, it's there. If we talk about anticipation of the skills, it's there. Competencies needed for the labor market to build the gap between the supply and demand sides is there. And the main outcome actually has resulted into very excellent and impact on the level of the country, comprised by West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. Next, please. Next slide. Okay, thank you. And these two slides, actually, which comprise my presentation, I would also refer to some of the results or the evaluation of this project, actually, which is in line of what we are talking now under YEM project. If we talk about the challenges, actually, under this final evaluation is comprehensive approach needs intensive coordination among all stakeholders. And as we know, studies have shown that it is not easy to bring all stakeholders, all actors in the TVET sector under one condition. And we hope by this National TVET Commission, this will be eased. Secondly, actually experts related to actually this approach are not actually or are lacking some of the managerial and technical levels, which we, I think on the national level will work on providing rehabilitation on that. Also, good results actually require governance with a stable economical situation, and it's not secret that all the countries are suffering from economical crisis, but Palestine over and above would certainly, as for many clear reasons, would be facing more during or due to the occupation and restrictions on our own resources, and this will give rise to negative impact on our economical growth. Cost of the additional or further training is also high and need funding. And you can imagine a country like Palestine suffering from the basic funding resources, how it could allocate funds for these that are considered to be for developmental issues. Next, please. Just the final slide, I would think that the impact of the work-based learning has revealed many good results actually on the level of the country. Issues integrated in the training projects, entrepreneurship and life skills actually has occupational health and safety policies and measures have been actually to be among the crucial issues related to the training process. So we are essentially not talking only on technical skills, we are talking also about life skills and over and above the digital skills that are needed more and more due to the COVID crisis. Also the bridging between the supply and demand side, between the education and training from one side and the labor market and the production side are there now in a better scheme of understanding. A significant increase in the employability actually, and the results have shown that 60% of the youth who were trained under the work-based learning have been employed in the first 6 months and more than that in the first year.
Yes. I'm going to ask you to sum up, Mr. Chouailis.
Has been there, and everything has been revealed that this is good. last thing, actually, it's substantial increase of the enrollment of the female students in the TVET has taken place in many related vocations in Palestine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And
thank you, Mr. Jouailis, National TVET Commission from Palestine. We will be still talking about work-based learning, and this time going to the UK, from where is joining us Mr. Jeremy D. Curtis, Director of Hickman Enterprise. You're joining us via Zoom, but we have a camera issue, so we will be more listening to you, and you will be talking about the kinds of work-based learning and about the notion of grading the employer as well. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be with you. I'm sorry that the camera doesn't work, but I'm sure that won't interfere too much. This presentation is a very short presentation about the components, the stakeholders, and the communication channels that you need for successful learning in the workplace, either on a work placement or at the end of a qualification when learners go directly into employment. What kind of work-based learning are we talking about? It can be work-based learning during the period of learning itself, either as a placement, a secondment, an internship, or as part of an apprenticeship program, or it can be after the learning has been completed when the learner actually starts work. It's an interesting idea to grade your employers. Gold employers, silver employers, bronze employers, and tin employers. The gold employers are those who are fully committed, fully capable of supporting you, providing all the components, all the communication channels that are needed for a successful work placement, a successful work experience. Silver employers are those employers who have less experience in the field, but are still able to commit well to the provision of work-based learning with some support from you, some direction as needed. Bronze employers may be engaging with your program for the first time, employers who need a lot of help in putting together the components, the communication channels, but nonetheless will be successful in providing a good work experience period for your learners. Tin employers, we'll come back, we'll talk about those a little bit later. So what do we need? We need an employer, we need the learner, we need a relationship between the two. Once we've got that, the rest is a piece of cake, surely. Well, maybe not so sure. We have overarching these features, the training providers. We've got a little piece of text missing up there. That top bar should be the training providers. These can be colleges, they can be schools, they can be universities, they can be employers themselves. But really important that the training provider has a strong relationship with the learner and with the employer themselves. Once we've got that, we need to talk about relationships with the manager and the owner. The manager or owner of the business will be representing the employer and will need strong relationships with the training providers to understand what it is that they are committing to. The manager will also need a supervisor who will be the relationship with the manager and owner themselves. And the supervisor will manage the relationship and the position of the learner in the workplace. The supervisor is one of the most important stakeholders in the whole work-based learning experience environment. Really important that they understand what the learner is doing. If it's a large organization, they may have a human resources department, which will also have strong relationships with the training provider. They've probably been involved in setting up the work-based learning experience in the first place, and they will monitor the work and the activities of the supervisor. But what is it that the learner is actually doing? Well, we hope that they will be doing something related to national occupational standards, the qualifications that they've been studying for with the training provider themselves. If you have national occupational standards, this makes life an awful lot more straightforward. If you don't have national occupational standards or competencies, that's a whole different qualification, which is not for today. The learner will be familiar with the national occupational standards. They will have been using those during their period of learning with the training provider. And it's really important that the training provider ensures that the employer understands what the national occupational standards are all about and how they relate to the work-based learning environment. The standards themselves will inform the manager, the employer, the owner, and that will channel through the supervisor back through the learners to make sure that the work-based learning experience relates to the qualifications or the standards that they've been using in their training environment. However, the one thing which we discovered on a project I was working on in Jordan that is seriously missing is the job description. What is the learner doing in their work-based learning environment with their department head, with their department activities? What are they doing? When are they doing it? And how does it function? Are they just there to make the tea? Are they just there to sweep up? Are they just there to turn up and sign a piece of paper? We found in Jordan that many of the employers didn't have a really clear idea of what the learner was supposed to be doing. The job description will be developed by the training provider, the human resources organization, and it will be informed by the standards qualifications. And it's really important that that job description is shared with the employer, shared with the manager, the owner, shared with the supervisor, and shared with the learner. So all these stakeholders have a really strong understanding of what the work-based learning environment is all about. Look at all these stakeholders we've got. Look at all these communication channels that are happening here. Your gold employers will understand all these functions, will understand all these channels, and will be able to make sure that these work well. Silver employers will need some more help. Bronze employers, the new employers into the system, will certainly need a lot of understanding in pulling all these stakeholders and components together. We talked about grading your employers, gold, silver, and bronze, and I also mentioned the tin employers. The tin employers don't understand, don't have the commitment, don't have the components. Put them in the bin, get rid of them. Find some new employers, some new people that can start at bronze level, and with your help and support can work upwards into a more effective, successful work program. If anybody's got any questions, pop them on the chat room. My name is Dr. Jeremy Curtis. Glad to help out as any time that I can. If you need more after this presentation is finished, just get in touch with UNESCO and they'll put us in touch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeremy D. Curtis, and thank you for inviting all the participants to send us their questions. If we cannot address them right away, we will be back to them. And thank you to all the distinguished guests for the first round of panels that we just listened to. Let's welcome now the second round of panelists who will take the floor for the second session entitled Partners Panel Sustainability of YEM Achievements. Our first theme is about multilateral organizations, and it's Mr. Georgios Zisimos. He's the head of policy advice and EU programming at the European Training Foundation. Thank you for joining us, and you will be talking about the importance of skills anticipation, and particularly maybe the skills of intelligence for adapted responses to changing labor needs. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Let me start by thanking UNESCO for inviting us here today. And of course, you heard from previous speakers that ETF, the European Training Foundation, has been already involved from the very beginning in certain deliverables of YEM. So we're happy to see today, let's say, the results of this cooperation over the last 3.5 years. So I'm the head of unit of policy advice, the European Training Foundation. As you may know, the ETF, the European Training Foundation, is an EU agency. We've been working with countries outside the EU. And of course, the countries that are involved in YEM, they are part of the countries that we're working with in many other projects. And today I would like to connect a bit the dots and say what we are doing that could be relevant to the work that YEM has done and how we can continue from now on. I think this is very important. So from the very beginning, the idea was to maximize synergies in the areas covered by YEM project and by ETF, and to build on results of previous attempts, previous projects, like the GEM project that ETF managed. It was a project on governance for employability in the Mediterranean. I think this continuity is very important to bring it into the discussion and remind ourselves that nothing starts from scratch. There is work ongoing, and it's important to build on that work. In ETF, based on our new ETF strategy for 2027, we strengthen our commitment to focus on human capital development. Youth is an important part of that. Let me also tell you that youth is the center of attention, not only in the Mediterranean region, but in many other regions all around the world. In our case, we work a lot with Central Asia, for example, where youth is part of our work. The role of skills, many spoke about that, has always been very important. Today, it's even more important. It's in fact a determinant of economic development and well-being of individuals and societies. And of course, when we're talking about the skills of young people, that is even more important. We see an increase in demands for support of skills development in the EU external policy. So this is an important sort of element that comes from the EU side. Skills development is nowadays incorporated in many external policies. And for us, that is the mandate to continue working in this field. So because of this increase, the ETF is providing policy advice service to the EU and the EU neighboring countries, including the countries in YEM project, always upon request. I stress this. We often say what works and what doesn't work in one country, but of course, to convert that into an advice, that needs to be backed up with some sort of request. And we do that just on how better to support skills development in a lifelong learning perspective. We spoke about youth, but perhaps the connection of youth in a lifelong learning perspective is equally important, because today's youth will be tomorrow's adults. And in order to support adults, upskilling and reskilling, you need strong foundations. And these foundations come from early enough. So the lifelong learning perspective is really very important. And at system level, we need to address that. The issue of anticipation of skills that has been covered a lot by YEM project is gaining ground in the national policy agenda especially, and countries are equipping themselves to be ready to address changes in the labor market. We see that happening faster than ever before. In this context, but also considering the pandemic, the COVID situation, the need to look into change skills needs and monitor these changes has become very, very important. Skills intelligence, access and collection of data is very important, but also strengthening the capacities to use this data, use the results of the analysis. We heard before from previous speakers on big data. This is an area that can be very, very helpful in anticipating these skills demands, and we use them in ETF. We are quite involved in that. We have a project dedicated to work in this area. In these respects, results achieved through the YEM project, the component on skills anticipation and forecasting, they offer an opportunity to consolidate and further develop mechanisms. That's why we see it in this continuum, contextualized to developments in different countries. This element of context is very important. The problems are often similar, but of course the solutions are not always the same. We need to take into account, and you heard from previous speakers about different countries in the region and how this was addressed. We see here also strong synergies and complementarities with the ETF studies on future of work. Currently is carried out and completed in Morocco in the agro-food sector. In Israel, in the agri-tech sector, we're looking at that sectoral level, and just launched recently in Tunisia in the energy sector. So this is very relevant. In particular in Israel, we see that there is a solid ground to continue this work, and ETF has been following closely YEM developments and will participate in the upcoming workshop to present the results.
Mr. Zisemos, I'm just going to ask you to wrap up at the end because we're behind schedule.
Okay, just a couple of more points. I have a few more, but I will be very fast. Palestine has also expressed a commitment to continue the work on forecasting and skills anticipation. But I wanted to pick up one point on digitalization and entrepreneurial skills. Both were mentioned before. If we're looking into this transition of youth to work, but also to adulthood, these two skills, digital and entrepreneurial, are very important. Let's not also forget the inclusive direct dimension of this, of when we talk about skills, especially when it comes to digitalization. I think this has been very obvious in the recent 1.5 years, especially in the pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Going now to Torino in Italy, where is Mr. Snehal Vasantlal Soniji. He's international training expert, International Training Center of the International Labour Organization. The floor is yours, Mr. Soniji.
Thank you so much. It is also my privilege and pleasure to be able to come and join this excellent forum. It has been a pleasure working with specifically the YEM project team led by Boreen, and I'm not going to name everyone here, Hervé, Romiti, Fazola, and everyone else who I have worked with. Georgios, my neighbor here in the ETF in Turin as well, talked about the importance, and he laid the emphasis on skills anticipation and matching. And also he talked about the importance of adult learning and lifelong learning. So one of the key things that we partnered with UNESCO, with the YEM project, was to deliver a specific tailor-made training for the YEM project beneficiary countries on skills anticipation and matching. We had this training was delivered over in 3 languages, English, French, and Arabic, with all the material being made available in these 3 languages, including interpretation and webinars. There were 107 participants who took part in this course, and the course actually finishes tomorrow. The unique thing about adult learning and the lifelong learning concepts is that it is, and also in line with the pandemic that we are being faced, which also has restricted our movements. What has happened is that we have been able to increase the reach of this course to cover all the 5 countries in one go. We have used the ITC ILO's eCampus platform to provide this training specifically, which has run from the 31st of May till 16th of July, covering about 60 learning hours over 7 different modules. There was one module that has been covered per week. We have had a wrap-up session earlier this week, excuse me, and there were 4 participants who specifically referred to how useful that they find the skills that they were able to learn as a result of participating in this course. It is also true that there were enough people who also found this experience challenging, given the fact that adult learning, which requires, with this course, which required about 6 to 8 hours of learning, dedicated learning per week, to cover the 6 modules which encompassed skills anticipation and matching, generation and analysis of labor market data, approaches and methodologies for anticipating skills needs, institutional mechanisms and roles of different actors for anticipation and matching, sectoral approaches, and translation of all that was learned into policy and practice. And I was saying that the colleagues sometimes also finding these 8 hours per week to dedicate to this learning process a bit of a challenge because of the day-to-day responsibilities that they had, and also both on the professional and the personal front. And therefore, this was, however, an excellent way by which the platform could be accessed by the learner any time of the day or the week, and they will continue to have access to these learning materials that was posted, including webinars over the rest of the over many years to come, because they have an access to the platform. The reason I say this is because of the fact that these resources that were specifically tailored and created for the YEM project, focused on the needs of the YEM project, have been created and are being made available to all the participants to use, not only now, but for future. The material that is uploaded there is downloadable. I believe UNESCO also has, under the YEM project's web page, provided some basic material available to them. I will only finish by saying two things. I think it is important as we move forward, trying to recover from the pandemic, trying to look at what learning could look like, what are the new skills that are needed. One of the key things that is required is going to be the use of digital technologies in an equitable way. I totally recognize that there is an inequality on digital and it comes to digital access. So that's one thing that really needs to be kept in mind. And the real second challenge, or the second issue that is going to be important, is to make sure that the learning that we have now provided over digital formats does not completely get washed away once the pandemic is brought under control, and we continue to focus on learning processes that are putting the learner at the center. May it be a combination of doing this face-to-face and along with the digital tools that are in place. It was a wonderful experience. I particularly thank UNESCO and the European Union who provided support to ITC ILO. It was a pleasure to cooperate and contribute to the results of this project. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sonaji. And just a reminder for all the participants, we gathered your questions and we will be addressing them in a few minutes, just after the last person to speak on this panel specifically. So the question about Nigeria will be answered. The question from Najiba Othmani also will be answered. And another question that was addressed to Ms. Véronique Lamblin, we'll get back to that in few seconds. So I'm passing the floor right now to Ms. Giulia Marchesini. She's from the Center of Mediterranean Integration. Giulia Marchesini will be talking about youth, education, and mobility, the regional challenges when it comes to unemployment, and how education should be rethinked in terms of uncertainty and in times of uncertainty like today. You have the floor, and just a small reminder, you have 5 minutes. So go ahead, Ms. Marchesini.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really pleased to be here with you today. So I'm from the Center for Mediterranean Integration, which is our international organization that is hosted by the UN family and more precisely by UNOPS. I'm the Human Capital Senior Program Manager at the CMI. And so I'm pleased to be here with you today because I would like to try to approach the nexus among youth education and mobility. I don't know if my slides are there, otherwise I can go ahead without, no problem. Okay, perfect, thank you very much. So what I would like to see is that in times of COVID, especially, the mobility has to be rethinked. And we are talking about vocational training, about education, and I think that the most important part is to remember that mobility of knowledge is something that is really, really precious. So in this perspective, I would like to try to address this point. Just a few words about the Center for Mediterranean Integration, which is a partnership for knowledge that brings together countries from both shores of the Mediterranean, donors, multilateral and bilateral agencies, and local authorities, and of course focus on civil society. So during the summit of the two shores, actually, that was held here in Marseille on June 2019, the summit called for a new discourse on education, employability, and mobility. A discourse in which young people were to become drivers of change in the region. And in this perspective, we did actually work with a group of experts from both sides of the Mediterranean, and we actually presented the work and see how mobility could be the key in order to address some of the issues and how to find solutions, because we need solution. And I will not go through the regional context because Boren already did go through the 5 divides this morning, and I don't think it's worth repeating what it was already very clearly said. So I will skip this slide, and I will just would like to highlight that the heart of this paper, this policy paper that is called Youth Actors for Change, Rethinking Mobility, as the focus is the Mediterranean youth, because as we said, this could be, of course, seen in 2 different ways, as an opportunity or as a challenge. And we do make the pari that this will be an opportunity, and we do prefer to consider this as a demographic divided. So what is all about in this about education? So in this particular context, we do think that there is a need to rethink education, and to rethink education with a focus on the mobility of knowledge, because if we want to access and to enhance the quality of education through different action, we do really need, I think, to focus on what is the heart of everything, is the knowledge and the mobility of knowledge, because this brings the 21st century skills, bring the ability to adapt, ability to develop critical thinking. And for this, we do make a call in this paper to rethink education from this perspective, and to see how mobility could come in and could help to enhance the quality from early childhood to tertiary education, and including, of course, vocational training. Those are the areas in which we focus, early childhood education, but I will just focus now on post-secondary education. First of all, regional vocational training, because this is all about the YEM project, and I think that is excellent that we are talking about this, because this is really important for the region and for the youth. And the second one on the post-secondary education is more at higher education level, so more at the university level. So on the at the vocational learning vocational training level, I just would like maybe to underline a few aspects. The fact that we really need to work at from a cooperative point of view at the regional level, because this will bring the mobility of knowledge and savoir-faire, and could help to enhance the quality of the training, and actually to value also the certificate on the labor market. In order to do this, there need to be a work, and the YEM project is doing it with this platform in order to try to identify what are from the priority in terms of vocational training needs, and try to bring all those in a regional level, and put the center themselves at the heart of this reform, by bringing also the private sector. This is a bottom-up approach, because we do believe that through bottom-up approach and with the direct involvement of the private sector, there will be the rise of the quality of vocational training. And the regional architecture that is behind this is really important in order to bring more quality and to bring this mobility of knowledge that is so important in order to address the 21st century skills. But we don't want to only focus on vocational training. We also have started actually a work on a tertiary education level and at university level. We did publish internationalization of tertiary education in the Middle East and North Africa, which was published in September 2020. And it is the first report dealing with internationalization from a regional perspective. And the aspect that I would like to underline
Sorry, Giulia Marchesini, I'm just a reminder because we are already 2.5 minutes behind schedule. If you can wrap up, please. Thank you.
I will. Thank you. So on internationalization, what is important to really focus on is the fact that internationalization brings a lot of benefits for the student, for the country, and really improves the skills in employability and the 21st century skills. In this perspective, we do think that the MENA region can work on this agenda because the region is lagging a little bit behind, but there are a lot of opportunities, and the COVID is one of those opportunities, because from day to night, everyone switched to internationalization at home, which is a way to enhance and to do internationalization by fostering the mobility of knowledge, but still by working on co-joint programs. So on this perspective, COVID is an opportunity in order for this region to try to catch up on the internationalization agenda and work on the quality of education. Thank you. This is all what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
The name of the authors, and I'm saying goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Giulia Marchesini. I'm just going to take a few minutes now to address some questions coming from the participants. I'm starting with Sifas from Nigeria, asking, is there any YEM coverage in Nigeria? And to answer you, I'm inviting Mr. Hervé. Mr. Hervé is Mr. Hervé Huot-Marchand, Chief of Section of Youth, Literacy and Skills Development at the UNESCO. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I think this question is very relevant and somewhere shows a great interest for this project, and this is in line with all what was shared by participants and from colleagues from UNESCO and other organizations. I think Nigeria should maybe not be the only one who can or has interest to ask such questions. Of course, a first point is that by this forum, but also through our work in coming days and weeks, we will further capitalize on all the lessons learned from the project, also to capitalize on all the tools, methodology we share about the toolbox, for example, on work-based learning. And all these materials are available through UNESCO to be used by countries. So I think it's a first step, and we will further exchange on this.
Thank you.
Given specifically Nigeria, I think they are lucky because we have a regional office there. We are strongly in touch, and we are defining our new strategy. So there will be some opportunity to mobilize funds and develop partnership with some donors who can support on Tibet, Nigeria and others.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great news for Nigeria. I'm going now further to the second question that was addressed to Mr. Garrigan. Where should we place skills demand monitoring in the context of skills anticipation and matching?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, where should we place skills demand monitoring in the context of skills anticipation and matching?
Yeah, so I think skills demand monitoring, it's almost the same as skills anticipation, right? So skills anticipation kind of looks a few steps forward, where you're trying to predict probably what sort of skills are relevant for your market or industry. So skills demand research is kind of a little bit more real time. It's looking at maybe the next 6 months or the past 6 months even. So it's a little bit limited time scope. So I would say probably anticipation is upstream. And then next is you're looking at the skills demand currently in the last forward and behind 6 months. And then that's how you can change your skill supply, because skill supply takes maybe 12 to 24 months to change. So it's kind of in between.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Passing the floor now to Madame Véronique Lambin. Madame Véronique, il y a une question aussi qui vous vient concernant
l'anticipation. There's a question about you which concerns skills anticipation. So given your experience in this area, in the area concerned by the project, what could be done in addition to what's already been done? What's the extra effort that's required? Well, support means working with people and helping them to work together. In my experience, people know a lot, but this knowledge is not necessarily shared. So you need forward-looking groups, not just to look forward, but to share ideas. It's important that individuals have ideas, but if we're talking about the future and knowing what skills are going to be required, this information needs to be shared. So we're talking about 5 or 10-year plans, but it's vital that we also know what to do tomorrow. So people in education need to work in business or work with people in business so that we can better predict the training that will be required. We mustn't lag behind the business requirements in that area. So we need to work together. That's what I would say is most important. Thank you very much.
There were a question that was addressed to Mr. Jeremy D. Curtis is not connected anymore. Maybe he will be back and we will be asking him the questions. I'm moving forward to the second theme of this panel, bilateral development partners. And I'm inviting Mr. Chris Cooper, educational and society expert from the British Council. Mr. Cooper, you will be talking about the outcomes of from the EU Morocco project, which links to skills anticipation again. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone, and yes, thank you for inviting me to join. Yes, for those of you who don't know, the British Council's the UK's cultural relations organisation, and as part of our education remit, we aim to support the development of relevant and inclusive TVET systems. Some of you may have worked with us or seen our skills for employability projects in your countries over the last 10 years, but we also work with the European Union, UNESCO, ILO and the ETF and others to share experience and knowledge globally. And that's really partly why I want to speak to you today. I'm just going to share 2 examples which link to the themes of the YEM project and which those of you here and part of the network may be interested in considering in the future. Firstly, I just wanted to share what we've been doing, as you said, in Morocco as part of a project funded by the EU and delivered with the Spanish Development Agency. And actually, just to mention what was said earlier on, this project built on the ETF YEM project. So almost it's a full circle with ETF, then us, and then hopefully some of you from YEM can take further forward. So in Morocco, as in a number of other countries, there's an intention for greater devolution of TVET planning and governance at regional levels. So basically, that's better able to meet regional needs and local needs. So our project brought together government, employers and community group representatives in 2 northern regions of Morocco into new regional working groups. These aim to pilot a new approach to TVET planning and coordination. One of the challenges the groups faced was related to the availability of information and skill needs, the very thing that you've been talking about. And as the work you've been doing, has been shown, there's lots of evidence or increasing amount of evidence at a national level, but actually there's very little at a regional level. So how can these groups plan if they don't know what the need is? So partly that was what our project tried to address. And whilst we did some of the things that were talked about earlier on in trying to capacity build about labour market skill needs and anticipation, one of the things we found out really was about identifying the data that the local partners had that could be shared that actually provided information that they didn't know about. So that was quite a strong learning point from what we did. But also we helped the group to pull together to identify how they could build on their existing mechanisms to collect better information. And as a result, they've now established information sharing platforms. In addition, the Tangier region, the group worked together to develop a plan. So to do this, we used something that you probably know well. They used an adapted version of ETF's Torino process. And I believe this is the first time it's been used at a sub-regional level, subnational level. And I suggest that if you have a look at this, if you're thinking of doing any regional planning of TVET. So the project's just finished, and so we're now looking at where there's further work needed to be done and rolling out the lessons that have been learned in that region across the other regions of Morocco. The second thing I just wanted to mention, as said, we've globally have a number of free toolkits and research which you may find helpful, specifically related to what's been talked about work-based learning. I know Borhin said at the beginning about the challenges related to apprenticeships. I wanted to highlight our apprenticeship benchmarking and assessment tool, which is developed and piloted in 10 countries and found to be useful in both countries that want to improve or expand their existing apprenticeship system or develop a more formal approach to apprenticeships. The self-assessment tool was built on the work of other partners, and we developed around 220 attributes which could be reviewed across the areas of policy, implementation, monitoring and evaluation. And we found it had two benefits. Firstly, in countries, it brought stakeholders together to review the questions, and it was a good way to get different perspectives on the system, identifying both strengths and weaknesses, and help them develop an action plan together. So it was like a mechanism for bringing people together, very much like perhaps the Torino process is, but very specifically on apprenticeships. Secondly, there was the international benchmarking aspect, which enables countries to identify what other countries are doing and to share lessons and learn with them. It's free and online, and as a network, you may want to consider a number of countries doing it at the same time so you can benefit from sharing knowledge. From a more global perspective, the more countries that complete the tool, the more we can say about the approaches to apprenticeship across the world. And it can help us identify where international collaboration could help to solve challenges. I hope this highlighted some of the work that we've been doing and how it links up with the other work across the region. But if you have any questions or want to know more, please visit our website, our British Council website, or get in touch with me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. We're going now to Palestine, from where is joining us Mr. Nidal Aish, Enable Belgium Development Agency. And Mr. Aish, you will be talking to us about Enable Palestine, support to the TVET sector and the Skills Development Fund mechanism called SDF in Palestine. The floor is yours.
Okay, first, thank you. And it's my pleasure to be with you today in this very interesting event, and also to speak about Enable Project in Palestine Skills Development Fund, and also to highlight the synergies with your efforts and others' efforts. Of course, Enable is working in Palestine since more than 24 years in different sectors. One of these sectors, of course, is the education, but with focus on TVET and the 21st century skills. This project this is the third project of Enable in Palestine on the sector of TVET and the 21st century skills. Within this project, of course, we have two main results, concentrating the first result on the technical skills and preparing the youth to enter the labor market. And the second result is concentrating on the 21st century skills. Of course, too many synergies with the project, with Enable project as well. Of course, we are concentrating on enhancing and capacitating the role of the private sector within the TVET sector in Palestine, but also working on building a high quality level of TVET programs in Palestine and broaden the scope of the work-based learning. Of course, the gender and marginalized people are at the center of our interventions. Of course, the innovation community improvement also is under the second result. But I will highlight quickly two main issues related to this project. The first one, the work-based learning approach, where Enable maybe since 5 years started introducing and supporting this new approach to Palestine and developed a work-based learning strategy with all the technical needed tools for the implementations for both sides, the demand side as well the supply side. But also within this project, existing project, we are continuing our efforts to expand this approach in Palestine and to involve more and capacitate the private sector companies how to implement and deal with this approach. This is the first one. Now I will highlight and speak about a new mechanism that Enable through the SYB project is introducing to Palestine, and we are started the implementation, what we called it the Skills Development Fund mechanism. And here I'm happy to say that all the efforts that we did from the beginning, we involved all the actors in Palestine, and these actors are mainly the governmental institutions, but also all the private sector umbrellas and representatives, in addition to the donors community, who can play a very important role in the success of this new mechanism. We are and I'm pleased to say that we already finalized a national blueprint for the Skills Development Fund mechanism in Palestine, and it will be disseminated and published soon. But also at the same time, we already started a piloting phase for this mechanism in order to test and learn lessons from the practical and experiencing this new mechanism in Palestine. And I think this new mechanism has additional importance at this time, specifically with the launching of the new TVET, National TVET Commission in Palestine, where it will be a financial arm for this new body. Of course, we have a very good relation and partnerships with all the stakeholders, as I mentioned. One of them is the UNESCO. We are very closely working with the UNESCO, with the GIZ, and with other donors and partners. Now, if I would like to speak about what my colleague mentioned, Dr. Ziad Jwelis, concerning the work-based learning, now we can say that a huge number of TVET institutions and private sector companies are already implementing and following this approach. And we see that the impact of the approach on the percentage of employment in these TVET institutions, where there is a big difference about the outputs of the traditional methods and this new approach, mainly, as I mentioned, on the employment and strategies and matching the skills between the demand and supply side.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Nadala Aish. You were with us from Palestine, and we're going to Lebanon now, from where is joining us Mr. Enzo Schiola, Corporation for International Cooperation, and you will be also addressing actually the issue of TVET and the needs of the labor market. The floor is yours. I don't know if you're muted, but we can't hear you.
Yes, okay, sorry.
Yes.
Do
no,
you hear
okay.
me now? Right.
Yes, we do.
Good.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. I would like to talk shortly about the experience that we have developed in Lebanon in the two projects financed by the EU that are called ProVT and VTA for all of them focused on vocational and technical education. I will bring here our experience that can improve both the quality and also the employability of the trainees. We started really to introduce and that are the three topics that I will talk. One is the assessment from a third party, and then how to involve the employers in the vocational technical public schools. And third one, how the role of the employers plays in the assessment of the job-related competencies. So we started first to assess a competence, job-related competence by a third party in the non-formal education, means in the short-term courses. And we realized that there is a conflict of interest. A training organization delivers the training and later on assess positively everybody. That has no value, no meaning for the employers. They know that is not the reality. So we introduced the concept to have a trusted organization from the employer that makes the competence assessment. And we deliver a certificate with the list of the competencies that are acquired by the trainees in the training. This one was limited at the beginning only to short training courses, so to a limited plateau of beneficiaries. And then with the continuation of the project, we decided to involve the school advisory board. That was an existing decree, not really implemented, where the employers they have in the school a consulting roles. So they can really, in a certain way, advise the school and the DGVT, means the Ministry of Education, to improvement. And they brings in the school something new breath, because they know what they need, they know very well the equipment that are using, and so they brings in the real needs of the job market. It's not a document, it's not a research, it's not something that is outside their own world. They talk face to face with the director of the school, with the technical teachers, and they express clearly, face to face, what are their needs. That leads to another main issue. The number of the students in the secondary education are in the range of thousands. So we could not involve at the same time external organization to make the assessment of the competence. So the same school advisory board appoint some professionals that are positively trained as assessors. During the end of the semester or end of the year, they participate, or better, they drive the practical assessment of the school students towards the job-related skills. And because this certificate is not a certificate, is an attestation of the assessment signed by employers, really has a value for the employers, because they know that the assessment is not made by the school to give the grade and to promote everybody to go to the university. They know very well that the skills were assessed by fellow companion organizations that are similar to them. So they trust this new approach and the certificate that is provided by the school advisory board. That is the experience.
Mr. Sciola, if we can, yes, Mr. Sciola, if we can just wrap up for the time. Go ahead, please.
It's finished. I am finished now. So,
okay, perfect. So, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going now to finish with our last theme, regional organizations. And I'm starting with Ms. Reem Shaybat, Chief of the Technical and Vocational Education and Training and Youth Division, United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East. Ms. Shaybat will be talking about the Technical and Vocational Education and Training Program in the UNRWA and with thousands of Palestinian refugees youth. Ms. Reem, just a reminder, very important reminder, we have 5 minutes. We cannot go beyond because we have to wrap up at the end. So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And really, I would like to thank UNESCO for this opportunity and for all the great efforts. All the participants are most welcome with this great, excellent forum, and a great opportunity for us to get all together and discuss very key issue about the youth employment and how we can build upon the YEM achievement. Actually, as Aziza has mentioned, thank you for the nice introduction. I'm Reem Shaybat, the Chief of Tibet and Youth Program in UNRWA Vocational Training Center. Here we provide actually vocational training for across the Tibet program, across the 8 vocational training center in the 5 fields of UNRWA operation: West Bank, Gaza, and West Bank, Gaza, and in West Bank, Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, and in Gaza, West Bank, Jordan, and Syria and Lebanon. We provide trade courses, semi-professional courses, and short-term courses. And these are, we have around 8,000 students enrolled in our vocational training center, approximately, this is the approximate numbers. And we also have we have graduated 120,000 students since the inception of the Tibet program. And this actually marks, we have been working with the Tibet and with the graduates and tracking their employment. And we have so many success stories that we have observed, and it's a great opportunity today to share some of these highlights, things that we have done and key focus area for us. And you may hear recently we have Ghada Krayem, one of our Tibet students who won the European Training Foundation Award in the solar energy field. Then I'd like you to focus about the key areas for the Tibet program, about where we work on strengthening the access of the Tibet for vulnerable, focusing mainly on the vulnerable students and disadvantaged and women. And also we have developed the curricular framework and work on the curricular development. So it is really because we need to ensure that market relevant curricula and that is focused on competency-based training and what would be the most relevant for the labor market here. Work-based learning is also another of our focus area through our different projects where we work about rigorous vocational training, on-the-job training, and placing our students in some working institutions so they can acquaint the required competencies before they graduate from our vocational center. So it is an integral part of our training program, linkages with the labor market. And you already have, all of the colleagues have touched about the importance of having labor market information. And here we also have ensured this kind of connection through program advisory committee and through information linking and building upon labor information, labor market information systems, and in order to ensure that whatever we are developing and we deliver in the Tibet program is relevant to the labor market needs. Placement and career guidance where provide employment skills and also provide our school students with some guidance about which career they can go ahead and make an informed decision about their future career. And for our Tibet students about employment skills, and after graduating, we track them and try to, through our linkages, to link them with labor market opportunities. Focus on entrepreneurship as well, because we know that how challenging is the labor market, so it's very important aspect. And in addition to provide our students with labor market information, labor market relevant skills and innovative skills, like the field of in the solar energy, where we provide some Tibet courses in solar energy, and also on the digital skills, which has been, as all of us know, has become a main focus during the COVID-19 and all the challenging aspects. During the crisis and the shutdown of all the UNRWA vocational training centers, similar to all other fields. There has been, and all the region, of course, and all the world, we have switched immediately to remote learning, and the focus was here really to build our teachers' capacity and their training, the training program itself, and how we can also address the digital divide by having, as we know, the access was a challenge, and it has been very challenging throughout this. And through our donors and our collaboration, we have been trying to actually provide devices and internet connection for the students to address this. We have also launched an agency-wide training for the teacher, for a teacher program to equip them how they can transfer the face-to-face training into an online modality, because this has been a big shift for our instructors as well. In addition, of course, in addition to focus strict measures about the health and about having and expanding the iLearn platform, which was one of the platforms that would facilitate provide an online storage for the materials, as well as facilitate the online training for our TVET students during the crisis. So a lot of areas that you have mentioned that we see a potential to address the challenges that we have already have increased, I would say, with some limitations, and the need to focus on TVET in emergency, especially during, as you know, after what we learned from the COVID-19 and this crisis about the importance of how the female has been the mostly affected vulnerable group in this area, and the employment rate, in fact, has decreased. In UNRWA, we have, although maintained high employment rate, we are around 80%. It decreased a little bit into 74 this year. However, this requires our collaborative effort to work on how we can enhance the competency-based training. And I know that there are a lot of frameworks that are available here. We could look all together as partners in unified CPT framework, and skills anticipation, human rights at work, and we have done also a lot of that. So
thank you.
Thank
you very much. Thank you, Ms. Reem Sheibat. And I'm passing the floor directly to Mr. Aziz Al-Hajir, Islamic World Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. Monsieur Aziz, vous allez vous peut-être finir sur des
Mr. Aziz, you may conclude on orientations about the future after the series of guests we've already heard. You have the floor, sir.
Il y a un petit souci avec votre son.
We cannot hear you, sir. The sound is muted. We cannot hear you, sir.
Non, on vous entend pas.
We cannot hear you, sir. Your microphone is off.
Est-ce que vous avez bien activé votre micro?
Did you unmute your microphone?
On peut pas vous entendre comme ça, a priori.
We cannot hear you, sir. The second test, can you hear me now? Yes, now we do. Thank you very much. Please, sir, I just remind you that you only have 5 minutes. I'll respect the time allotted to me. A good day, dear partners, dear listeners. I'd like to thank UNESCO and the Regional Office of UNESCO in Beirut for this initiative and this invitation. I'm thrilled to be amongst you today in this important regional forum on youth employment in the Mediterranean. It's a very important topic which represents for our organization ISESCA a major pillar of our action, education, science, and culture, and which we deal with in a holistic fashion. It will be a pleasure for me in this very brief introduction to share with you some of the activities and initiatives which we defend about and for the young people. And I'll speak about what we did in the past 2 years, more specifically during the years 2020 and 2021. And I make the best of this opportunity to express our will, the will of ISESCO, to develop its partnerships in order to set up a list of good practices and lessons drawn from youth employment in the Mediterranean. I will start by a first initiative, which was set up defined in a memorandum between ISESCO and the UNESCO Fund for Population in Morocco. We are working together in order to promote women's leadership. Our actions for 2021 are targeted women and young women because ISESCO declared the year 2021 at the Year of Women. So most our actions are targeting women and young girls. As I was saying, in an MOU between UNESCO and the United Nations Fund for the Moroccan population, we will be working in favor of women's leadership through reinforcing the access of vulnerable populations to information services and job opportunities, and through the support of digitalization and capitalizing the expertise of the two organizations for the empowerment of women and young girls and their access to the labor market. Second initiative, ISESCO is presently deploying a training program about leadership for peace and security in partnership with the UNESCO Office for the Maghreb, the Conference of Ministers of Education of Franc-speaking governments, Francomen, in coordination with the Ministers of Youth and Sport of the Francophone countries, has developed a program which aims at training and qualifying young people to leadership positions because they are here to help the development of peace and societies of the future. We want them to be the ambassadors of peace in their societies by providing them with tools, with the support of known personalities, leaders that are source of inspiration, in order to set up strong bases for pacific, inclusive, and coherent societies. And throughout this program, the hope is for the beneficiaries of the program, thanks to the skills acquired, will be able to translate their ideas into a concrete actions in order to implement those actions in their own countries. Now, third initiative, in our Rabat Center, ISESCO has launched the first incubator for leadership. It is hosted within our building. It's a platform that aims at providing the young people of Islamic countries with leadership capacities for the future in the field of education, science, and culture. Mr. Hatchett, I'd like to remind you that time is flying. You have 40 seconds to conclude. Absolutely. I will move on to the last initiative, which is an initiative that started in the past year, which the African Bank to empower young women after having taught them to read and write, and we train them in the field of embroidery and sewing. ISESCO, through its Action Plan 2019-2021, has set up several projects and initiatives about young people and employment, and I'd like to thank you for listening. Thank you, sir.
Moving now to the closing remarks after this very interesting and inspiring speeches and testimonies, and I'm passing the floor to Mr. Borhan Chakron. Just remind is the Director of the Division of for Policies and Lifelong Learning Systems at the UNESCO. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Aziz, and thanks to all colleagues who have joined us today. It was rich and valuable discussion, and I'm sure we will take forward all the suggestion, conclusion, proposals that were made during the event. Let me just recall that we have, of course, we are closing the YEM project, but we are continuing working. And there are three things that are important to recall. The first is that all the resources related to YEM project, the report that we have produced, the tools that we have developed will remain available. That the YEM project platform hosted by our UNESCO UNIVOC International Center in Bonn will remain active and will include additional resources. As I mentioned, we will be producing the country skills panorama very soon. Second, as announced by our colleague Snehal at the ITC ILO Center, the course on skills anticipation and assessment and the material that have been shared and developed will remain available for the years to come, and the participant can leverage those resources for activities and action that they are planning and that they are implementing. Third, PICS platform, as mentioned by Benjamin Marteau, will be available and will remain active for all the countries engaged in teacher training, in youth skills development, in digital skills. So these are resources that will remain available. For UNESCO, the work will continue as well through our programs and resources. We are developing a UNESCO strategy for technical and vocational education and training that will be launching early next year. And obviously, the Mediterranean region, the Arab region, and the countries involved in the YEM project remain a priority for us through our Beirut office and activities that will be launched in the context of our strategy and the international cooperation and activities that we will be organizing. In the next weeks, we will be conducting the evaluation of the project, and the stakeholders, the participants will be involved and will be consulted regarding the impact of the project, the results, and also the sustainability. And we are happy to hear all the potential for sustainability and alignment that our partners have been mentioning, and I'm sure we will find more to do together. The evaluation, of course, will look at the project results, the project outcomes, but also look at what activities, what initiatives we can design going forward. And I would like to, related to this, I would like to thank again the European Commission, DG NEAR for the support that we have received, the collaboration, and of course, all the trust that we have had in the implementation of the YEM project. I'm sure that the collaboration with the European Commission, with DG NEAR and other Director General at the European Commission will continue. Let me also thank our colleagues at the European Training Foundation who have been actively engaging in the project since the beginning. Thanks to ITC ILO also for the activities that have been conducted, PICS, and all the experts that have been involved with us in implementing the project and making the project a success. Warm thanks go also to all member states and the participants, experts who have been involved in the different activities and who contributed to the implementation of all actions that have been conducted at the country level, at regional level, and internationally. And we have heard the examples here today. So all the thanks to go to them. And I hope that the project spirit and the project results will remain with them. Thanks to our colleagues who in Beirut, in Paris, who organized this event and who have been involved in the implementation. Thanks to you, Aziza, for the moderation, and to all the team that have been involved in this activity. The project is ending, but activities will continue. TVET remains a priority for UNESCO in the region, and I hope I will meet with all colleagues going forward. Thank you very much. Au revoir. Ma salama.
Thank you very much. So we're reaching the end of this final YEM Regional Forum. Thank you for all of you, all the guests, all the participants for taking a part of it. Again, it's implemented by the UNESCO, funded by the European Union. And as Mr. Borhan Shakran just said, that maybe the project is finishing now, but is guaranteeing the sustainability of the work that has been done and that continue to be done as well. We've been talking talking today about life skills, how important they are, just as important as technical skills for the youth. There are a lot of challenges that the youth of our region is facing today, and a lot of things that have been shared today, and tools actually to tackle those challenges, common challenges and common tools, and collaboration, cooperation is just the key. Mesdames et messieurs, Excellences, merci beaucoup à vous
Ladies and
tous.
gentlemen, Your Excellencies, thank you all very much. Thank you so much to all the participants who were with us in this last YEM Forum, organized by UNESCO with a program with EU funding. Once again, we can see that the youth are the main asset of the region, but there are serious challenges for everyone, everywhere. And we see that the best way of meeting them is cooperation, especially since, whilst today the program is coming to an end with this regional forum, work is not ending. As Mr. Chabot said, we'll be using all the tools already in place to support young people who need it. So let me say thank you once again to everybody, whether you're involved in this forum or whether you're involved in some other way. In particular, thank you so much to all those who sent in questions. Unfortunately, we weren't able to answer all of them, so we've now reached the end of this final Youth Employment in the Mediterranean project. All good things come to an end, of course, but the work continues, and we have to make sure that the outcomes continue to have an effect. It's organized by UNESCO, funded by the EU. Thank you so much to everybody. And we're extremely grateful to everybody. We hope to see you again soon.
Recording stopped.